Padres Hot Tub, everybody. Greg Elston, Chris Reed, Raphie Cantor. We have a special guest on a special episode, our pre-deadline deal episode. It is our pleasure to welcome back the guy I think is doing the best independent Padres writing that there is. Just period. Period, exclamation point. Letters to AJ. If you haven't subscribed to the Substack yet, it's time to get going. The man who makes it happen, Dylan, joining us on this edition of Padres Hot Tub. Hi, Dylan. Good to see you again.
Hi, thanks for having me. Good to see you all.
Well, the pleasure is ours. It is great to have you here. It's an exciting time. This is the last show before the next emergency podcast. I hope. There's got to be a trade between now and next week. There just has to be. We're recording on Sunday, July 27th. July 31st is Thursday. It's an off day for the Padres, but hopefully not for AJ Preller. So we've got a lot to talk about on today's show, including a 10-game road trip that came to a much more satisfactory end than the middle. Like a lot of Netflix series, baggy in the middle episodes, strong at the start, strong finish. Little padding. Could this have been a movie instead of a 10-episode road trip?
Let's hope it ends that way.
Indeed, but I digress with comedy. First, a quick note for everybody that all the way through deadline, so basically for the next week, okay, we are continuing a deal on our Patreon with 10% off on all annual memberships. And there's already 10% off, period. Okay. But when you have an annual membership, there's another 10% off. So it's really 20% off an annual membership, 10% off a month to month try. All you got to do is go to patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub, Patreon. I know. I still do know it. Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. Don't judge it just based on this idiot. And enter the code DEAL10. DEAL 10, and you'll get 10% off on a monthly subscription, or if you go yearly, you get an extra 10% off. That'll be a 20% deal that continues for the next week. We invite you to come in, find out why this vibrant community continues to grow and to be an outstanding place to take in a Padres season. Find out for yourself. Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub.
Worth every penny, by the way.
Oh, thanks, Dylan.
Thank you, Dylan. I appreciate you. Still free letters to AJ on Substack. So technically a better value than us. But Dylan, thank you so much for being here. Let's start with just as a point of entry, your thought on where this club, 8 games over 500, coming back home to take on the Mets and the Cardinals, where they stand approaching the deadline.
Sure. So any baseball season has a regular cadence, and that's the first half. It's about banking wins, and it's about finding out what your revealed, as opposed to your projected, strengths and weaknesses are. And the second half is about addressing the revealed weaknesses, forecasting what your team will be down the stretch, and executing, trying to get into the playoffs. So thus far, they've banked enough wins, and maybe more than any other year in recent memory, their weaknesses are pretty, comprehensible. It's not a mystery. And so I think from, the implied strategy there is address the weaknesses and see if you can execute down the stretch.
Fair. Guys, any way that you would massage that to make it your own?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank Dylan for being here. He's probably my favorite person to read about the Padres. So 100%. I just thank you for your work. I love what you do, and I can't wait to talk to you in specifics about a couple of the pieces that you've written this year so far. I think that the Padres revealed weaknesses and strengths I think that's a very good way that word revealed as opposed to projected. It's a very good way of putting it because we saw it come into play this weekend. We saw it come into play in this road trip. This team is incredibly strong on the pitching side of the ball, and incredibly frustrating on the offensive side. And I listened to your guys' post-game show last night. It's fantastic. I'm sure we'll get into the Manny Machado Instagram tinfoil hat corner later on in the show. But
got to.
Craig, you said something along the lines of, if this team adds a run, then they're a serious contender for a World Series. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I do feel that way. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was Dr. Cosmo, another one of our patrons, who posted in our Discord chat today that the Padres are 40-24 when they score 4 runs or more. That's 4 is the threshold, and that was going into today's game. So the answer is actually 41-24, something like a 63 or 64% win clip. That'll get you close to 100 games. The formula is not like rocket science for this team. I think the rocket science of it, as we'll get into later in the show, and I'll hand it off to you after this, Craig, is just how are they going to make it work? There's rumblings about not being any money. The farm system is obviously depleted. That's something that we are hearing consistently, not just from people who write about the Padres every day, but also people who talk nationally about baseball. What they're hearing from other executives is that Padres just simply don't have the depth, and that potentially teams like the Reds and the Giants will have an advantage in the buyer's market because the Padres simply can't compete. So I think Dylan did a great job of pointing out that the Padres' strengths and weaknesses have been revealed. The million-dollar question is, do they have the resources to fix them?
The multi-million-dollar question. Are they willing to commit a few more $1 million to turn this thing up and make it grow? In that sense, when we start by asking Dylan for a 30,000-foot view, I'd like to offer to start things off a 3-foot view. I'd like to zoom all the way in and say...
We're going to talk about Jose Iglesias. Oh.
Yes, exactly. Even further. Now you can see him. He's beautiful. No. The last 2 wins were so important. The past Ken Rosenthal column I read, which was written Saturday morning, was essentially, hey, Reds and Giants smell blood in the water. Here they come. They see the Padres are struggling. They think the Padres don't have the resources to add. They are going to jump, and they're going to make a big move, and they're going to leapfrog San Diego. And, of course, Rosenthal's bow tie like spinning in joy as he's typing it. Nonetheless, I'm like, yeah, well, kind of. I mean, those teams gained like 3 games in 3 days on San Diego. So to take St. Louis, push them back in a corner, say, nope, 3.5 when we started, 3.5 when we finish. Go back in your corner. You're a game over 500. To take the Giants, push them back a game. To take the Reds, push them back a game. I think that's huge. And I don't know, none of us know what's going on in the ivory tower. You know, when AJ swipes his key card to go in and speak to the group dog and to speak to John Seidler and everybody else. But, like, it's got to help to pull 2 out here and to go 5-5 and to be back in a more controlling position than it would have been to stumble all the way through, get mopped in St. Louis, you know, and be 3-7. So I love 30,000 feet, but right now I think 3 feet is important too.
Well, I mean, this team hasn't lost 5 in a row this season. So getting mopped in St. Louis, it was kind of unlikely because they haven't shown them in them. They've got the best stopper in the league, Randy Vasquez, going out for them every 5th game and making sure it doesn't happen. I almost got through it with a straight face. Dylan's summary of the beats of the season was really excellent. And I think the Padres can know the truth. It's whether they can handle the truth. whether they can handle that there needs to be adjustments in the game to game in the game day decisions, like the bunting, so to speak, and whether they can handle the truth that Gavin Sheets has been really good so far this year. Maybe you don't want him as like an everyday player the entire season. Maybe like his strength is beginning to wane a little bit. Maybe like you don't want your roster to have Trenton Brooks on it another day longer. Like, it's whether I feel like they're seeing the exact same stuff that we are. It's whether that they can handle it and make the adjustment on it. And that goes for the ownership too. Like, I know ownership wants to see a playoff run because they get to cash all those receipts, right? Like, they get all the concession money, they get all the ticket money. And if they can handle that, this is a 500 squad. It's coming off of a 5-5 road trip. Without the banked wins in the first month and a half of the season, it's a 5-5 squad. It's a 500 squad. So if you can handle that truth and you want the playoff receipts, then you got to invest a little bit more, baby. I know they invest a lot, and I think it's going to be really crucial because the farm system being what it is, you can't change that overnight. That's not a decision you can make. Oh, I want my prospects to be worth more. All right. No, you can't do that. But you can choose to put out another $10 million and pay the last third of a guy's salary. And whether they choose to do that is going to make a huge difference in them becoming that one-run more team that we want.
Well, let me use that as a turning point to take it back to our guest, because the last piece you put up, Dylan, was about, in Spanish, tu tocayo, your namesake, Dylan Cease, and talking about his very difficult season. Chris just talked about the idea of potentially having to reduce payroll from this current team in order to add to it. The names that come up are the obvious ones, and I think Dylan Cease is really at the top of that list. What are your thoughts after a road trip where we got one really good start from Dylan Cease and one kind of like classic 2025, 5 innings, 3 runs, mistakes in critical times, not terrible, but not good. Just another kind of Dylan Cease outing. What are your thoughts on where the Padres stand and what they could possibly do with this player?
Well, with Cease in particular, he really struggles the longer the game goes on. And it's not a matter of fatigue. It seems like it's a matter of familiarity. And there's an archetype of that specific pitcher, really, really good pitches, not that many of them. So, the game theory for the hitter is fastball slider. Take a really good hack at what you think it is. And I think with Cease in particular, it's 4-seam fastball slider. Those are thrown from different arm angles. Sinker slider pitchers can be just a little bit more effective because you throw those from such similar angles. It's incrementally a little bit harder to pick up for the batter. And you wonder if just subtle changes in either of those pitches, even though their overall, shapes are fantastic, has led to him having a familiarity problem the second and rarely the third time through the order, because he hasn't pitched as many innings third time through. So what do you do about that? I loved what they did in Washington. Second time through the order, he mixed in sinkers and knuckle curves. And the difference in Washington is he really executed those. The pitch that got to him in Miami was a knuckle curve that he left way over the plate, and Jesus Sanchez crushed it. And that probably tells you that that's why he's not throwing that pitch more often. He doesn't quite know where it's going all the time. So what do you have there? You have a pitcher that's probably going to be really good the first time through the order, pretty reliably. And the numbers show that, and the study of similar archetype pitchers show that. So what does that imply? That implies you got to pay attention to how the first time through the order went. And if he's at 60 pitches as you're turning over, you got to take a long, hard look at who's coming up and what arms you got ready to go in the bullpen. And you got to make some hard decisions about adding some stress to that bullpen. And so what comes to mind to me is there a way to get some, cheap, reliable help in the bullpen to preserve I know you coined this phrase, the four horsemen, and still get some good production? So I'd be looking around the league for starters that have, similarly great first time through the order, but pretty mediocre aggregate statistics, and see if we can bring back the long relief game, not as a mop-up duty, but as a weapon. And I feel like, Raphie, it was you and John Percoda maybe a couple years ago talked about the idea that if you just insert a league average pitcher for your starter who's about to go, third time through, the expected value of that is quite high because you're not going to get first time through the order results with your starter. That type of creativity, using, the same assets, but using them slightly differently, can incrementally add a lot of value. And it doesn't cost probably as much as, I heard the bank shot trade of like Cease to one team, Sandy Alcantara to the Padres, replacing him in the order. Probably a lot easier to just go out there and get like a JP Sears type.
Do you think much of Dylan adding the sinker and a sweeper to the pitch mix the last few times out? Because since the break, those have been around, whereas before he was primarily those other two with the rare knuckle curve mixed in. But I don't know if the first time we saw the sinker and the sweeper was at the Nationals, but they've definitely been featured a lot more the past couple weeks.
I think it's definitely deliberate. I think his usage of the four-seam slider had gotten up to like 88% or something. And hitters are just too good. They've got the traject machines. They're taking batting practice off of pitches with your shapes at your speed and getting familiar even before the game.
Makes it really
I think
easy
it comes
to
down
guess.
to is, can you locate?
Dylan, I had a question about this because part of my other thesis about the team, besides our limited resources to potentially improve it, is also the stubbornness in doing things kind of the baseball way. And, we can see tons of examples of that in Luis Arraez this season in terms of the batting order, et cetera, et cetera. I think because Dylan Cease came into this season as our sort of prototypical ace, the idea of like this is the guy he's supposed to be. To me, he reads as someone who would benefit greatly from using an opener. And then, like if we want to, for instance, think about how we can effectively deploy Kyle Hart on this team, you have Kyle Hart out there, for the first time through the order, and then bring in Dylan Cease, and then all of a sudden, hopefully, you are getting a strong pitching performance without necessarily having to use all of your four horsemen because you have Dylan throwing a little deeper in the game. Is that something that you think that Dylan would benefit from, and is that something that you think is realistic that the team will deploy?
It depends what you mean by benefit, because he probably isn't going to benefit from that in his off-season, contract negotiations. That looks like there's something wrong with him. So it's probably, baseball's an orthodoxy. It always has. There's a lot of groupthink, and that's not a typical way that you deploy a true ace. So there's going to be a personal cost to him for sure. And the reality is, we have no way of knowing the details of this, but he has an agent. That agent's going to be in the front office's ear. They're most probably not going to have good things to say about deploying someone like that. But from the goal is to try to win baseball games. Yes, you got to think about these kinds of unorthodox strategies. There's only a few teams in the league that can just, stick to the decisions that follow the orthodoxy and consistently win because they have the resources to do so. If you're not one of those teams, then you have to be creative, because that's one of the only ways that you're going to get a source of value, is deploying the assets that you have as efficiently as possible. So could Kyle Hart open and bait out a lineup of all righties, get through it one time, hopefully without a disaster, and then bring in a dominant Dylan Cease for the second time through the order? I would think that would be tremendously efficient and would benefit the Padres maybe benefit Cease a little bit in terms of his overall ERA, but there'll be a personal cost to that. So I think the culture is what that comes down to. Do you have the culture where you can ask someone like that to do it and you can actually execute that? That's the unknowable thing from the outside.
I don't know, man. This club can't get Luis Ariz to stop bunting. This, it seems this isn't the group of folks for that type of thinking. I think I'd rather have Kyle Hart come in after they're already geared up for Dylan Cease. I'm terrified to watch Kyle Hart start any more games for the San Diego Padres.
Fair.
Boys. I don't care how long.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you said it. Whatever the ideal strategy is, whatever you would do in Out of the Park or Stratomatic, that's not what's going to happen for Dylan Cease, because the day that he's turned into a bulk reliever, a question can be asked by every single GM that then goes on to negotiate with him in the winter. Like, well, what's going on? I thought you were this guy. But here's the way I wanted to bounce it back to you, though, Dylan. Like, we've gone from this vague, amorphous Dylan Cease. What is he? What has he been? What could he be? Things are a lot more finite now. Dylan Cease has made 21 starts. So he'll make 11 or 12 more starts this year in all likelihood. That's it. It's 11 or 12 more starts for Dylan Cease. So to me, the Padres equation, in my mind, if we're talking about like strategies and whatnot, they're not going to turn him into a bulk reliever. They're not going to do any of those things. They're going to roll him out there as if he's Max Scherzer, basically. They're just going to roll him out there to be an ace. The numbers that he's put up, B-WAR wise, 1.3 whip, 4.6 ERA. F-WAR wise, sure, the FIP is in the threes. It's okay. Are we sure that the next guy down the road, a guy that you trade for and or Bogaerts, can't do 11 starts of this to get you to the postseason mark?
It's a good question. He's probably a much better pitcher than his ERA suggests this season. And it's good to remember, like, every outcome always involved luck. There's probably some bad luck also in this season, but it's probably not all luck. It's probably specifically with the way that he was pitching in the first half, becoming very, very predictable, just simplifying the game for the hitters. And you saw what he deployed the last two games. It looks like there is an intentional corrective. That's probably going to be a lot more effective than his first half. But as you said, there's 11 starts to figure that out. So I think the challenge is you just have to forecast that. And what is in favor of that is his overall track record and the stuff. The stuff looks good. So I would say it's likely he's going to be a better pitcher than Bogaerts down the stretch. It's definitely not guaranteed. And you have to weigh, on the other hand, whether the incremental difference between those two is more valuable than what you might be able to do moving a pitcher like that, as has been rumored all week. And there's going to be some irreconcilable uncertainty there. But I'd say it's more likely has a better second half than first half for those reasons.
Guys, any thought to the thesis? It's less about dreaming on Dylan and now kind of getting to the hard facts of 10, 11 starts left. What are you going to get in these limited days and weeks until he leaves your team?
It all goes back to what they're playing with, and I don't know the money they're playing with. I'm terrified that they're trying to balance out payroll added by losing payroll. I don't like that thought, one little bit. But Dylan Cease is making a lot of money, and he's the guy I trust probably the least. I mean, with Luis Ariz getting a close second place at this point of the guys making money that would have to go, I would prefer the Padres just add. It's not my money. It's not my team. I've come around to your guys' way of thinking that Dylan repeats here, that Dylan Cease is almost certainly going to put up a better second half than he has so far. Excuse me, I should say last third. Really,
exactly.
The All-Star break
That's kind of my whole point. Is like second half. It's 11 starts now. So
yeah,
he's running out of time. One more bad start, he's kind of digging a hole that he can't get out of.
I do think it's kind of silly to rely on Ryan Berger being as good as him, just because of the track record, and that we do see Dylan making these adjustments on the fly with our all-world pitching coach. I've been team trade Cease all year long. You guys know that. And if that's what the club has to do in their battle plan to make it happen, then yeah, he's the guy at the top of the list. But backfilling is not going to get easy. Eric Fetty just moved from the Cardinals to the Braves, which is super bizarre, but he was pitching in AAA anyway after getting designated for assignment, and I'm sure no contender wanted to give him a spot in the rotation. But like, there's pretty slim pickings out there. Like, you're talking about what's his name from Washington, not Soroka, but something like that. You're talking about the Patrick Corbins of the Major League Baseball, Charlie Morton. Like, if you're backfilling Dylan Cease to Charlie Morton or Ryan Berger, I feel like you're going to lose more games than you win, even with his struggles so far this year. So,
see, I don't know.
You know,
I don't honestly know if Tomu Sagano or Charlie Morton over 11 starts based on what I've seen from Dylan Cease, that I can't get 6 innings and 2 runs out of one of those guys.
I'm fine with moving Dylan strength for strength, getting a bat on the club. Like, if that's the trade that must be made for that to happen, I'm okay with it. But if we're like relying on our current depth pieces to suddenly be him, I ain't buying it.
Well, I think those are two different questions, Chris, because if you're saying to yourself, well, Dylan Cease has been operating at a 4.6 ERA, if we can trade him and go and get a bat while also getting someone else who can throw at a 4.6 ERA, well, I think that that's a compelling, interesting, I don't know if I necessarily agree, but I think that that is an argument that at least holds some water. But I think the idea that Dylan Cease is going to pitch worse than Charlie Morton or Sugano or Ryan Berger is insane. And I think, Craig, I have to appeal to your Stratomatic sensibilities. Do you really think that you're going, if you're playing Stratomatic, are you really taking, Charlie Morton? Come on, man.
No, probably not. But my trust level on Dylan Cease is honestly at an all-time low, and he's gotten this deep into the season, being dilettante Dylan the whole way, and never giving you even 2 straight starts of like, oh yeah, here he comes. He's on the way. Now he's turned a corner. It's always one decent start. Nope. Back to 3 runs in 5 innings, back to 95 pitches in the 5th. And he's not going to be able to get any further than this. So this could just be this season for Dylan. This could just be a lost season. And everyone has to bet that the next season is better for Dylan Cease. Again, 2 more bad starts and the numbers are locked in for Dylan Cease. He needs to kind of run the table a little bit in the last, not 11 great starts, but 11 decent starts to really turn his numbers for the year around. So I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. I don't trust the guy. He's on the way out the door, guaranteed. So if you can get better than a 4th round draft pick, and you can, on the market, find the prospects you need in a Cease trade to swap to get the outfielder /DH /catcher /relief, the stuff you need. Look, I ain't mad at it because, as you guys know, and this is where I draw the line, and I'm in crazy town, and you can join me or you can't. It's fine. I'll draw the borders of my own little city here, but I don't trust Dylan Cease 1 lick in a playoff game. I think he's essentially an automatic loss. So because of that, to me, he's got a really defined period of time he can be valuable to this team, and it's the 11 starts remaining in this season. So, if you go ahead.
That's exactly right. That's what it comes down to, is the trust about the playoffs, because the theory of the pitcher, the ceiling is so much higher for Cease than any of the other names that we've mentioned. he has this stuff where when it is all together, he can shut down. It doesn't matter what order he's facing. He can shut down any team. He can get you 6 innings, no runs, 10 strikeouts, and turn it over to your lockdown bullpen. So if you can trust that you're going to get that in the playoffs, the cost of trading him becomes astronomical. And if you can trust that you're not going to get that, then yeah, the gap between what you're going to get over 11 starts and what you've seen from the other names mentioned doesn't seem as big. So I think that's the key question.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Dylan, but I also just want to point out that there's only a pool of about 10 to 12 teams to which you can trade Dylan Cease, and you better hope that he actually gets traded to an American League team, which would put you in a 4 to 5 team range. Because I can guarantee you, if Dylan Cease is in a Cubs uniform or a Met uniform, and he's going up against the Padres in a playoff series, guess who's not getting a single run against him? The fucking Padres.
So that's the thought experiment. That's the perfect thought experiment. Just fast forward. You trade Cease to patch the holes to get you through the regular season and into the playoffs. Great. Pivotal game. Cease is on the mound for the other team. How do you feel?
Awesome, because I know exactly what's coming. It's a 4-seam fastball or it's a slider, and the dude's going to overthrow it, and I'm ready to go. He's going to walk the 9-hitter to get to Tatis, and Tatis is going to hit a bomb. I know. I'm kind of playing a role at this point with what I'm saying, but I'm not precious about the guy because I've seen what I've seen. And going back to the playoffs, it's like 23 starts in a row. What I've seen from Dylan Cease, and it's nothing that I'm really excited to put out there in a must-win game. Compared to, again, Craig's in Crazy Town. Let's draw the city flag, but Kolek stepped up today in a nailed start. He pitched really strong in hot weather in a position that the Padres needed. Vasquez only gave up 1 hit. Metrically, Randy Vasquez isn't even in the same. Practically, he's not considered a pitcher compared to Dylan Cease. He's so far outside of the grouping in terms of his numbers, his metrics, his stuff, etc. But holy cow, the kid locks down in games and gets things done. And now I sound a little bit like Quintera, but still, I feel like there's a lot of guys on this team that have pitched pretty strong in some pretty tough situations. And I haven't seen Dylan pitch strong in a tough situation in a long time.
Well, could we talk about Randy just for a moment?
Yes, because that's a guy who pitches strong in the big moment.
Yeah, he has. But I can't help but shake the thought that part of why he's been so effective is not the innings that he pitches, but the innings that he doesn't pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Our Discord was on fire when he got taken out with 67 pitches thrown this past start, but it's worked, man.
So I don't have the numbers offhand, but I believe it was something like third time through the order last year, he gave up like 10 runs in 13 innings.
I believe
and he's not being given the third time through the order. And that's probably where the blow-ups that we're all like waiting to see, would have been. And they're preempting that. And what's the Padres' record in his starts? They're pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Dylan, I just wanted to let you know he had a 5.79 ERA last year, third time through the order. That was 12 earned runs in 18 and 2/3 innings.
Yeah, not great. And you don't want to think about a pitcher like Dylan Cease the same way because he's supposed to be an ace. Ace gives you quality starts, dominant quality starts, and you don't want to think about that. But at the end of the day, it's about trying to win games with the revealed weaknesses, strengths and weaknesses of your players. One way to maximize Dylan Cease is to lengthen the bullpen, not with mop-up guys, but with another arm that can catch 2 innings on a great night, 3 innings, and give 1 time through the order the way that kind of relief pitching used to be in the 80s before the subspecialization basically meant you're a one-inning guy or you're a starter and that's it. There's a list that you can look up of the pitchers' individual seasons with the highest win probability added. And you'll see like in the top 20, it's all these guys that threw like 300 innings back in like the early 1900s. And then you'll see one modern player in the top 20. And it's a pitcher named Willie Hernandez. And he only threw 140 innings that year.
1984?
How did you know, Craig?
He was MVP of the American League that year.
This is what he does.
He
Dylan.
was
it's obnoxious.
He was a reliever that won MVP, which sounds preposterous. They didn't know how to assign value. But then when you look at the value that he provided his team, it was astronomical. And the way that was for the Tigers, the way that the Tigers deployed him, he was a two-pitch pitcher, cutter, screwball, is they would deploy him when there was a fire, and he was the fire brigade. So he was their nominal closer, but he was coming in when the save needed to be made, not always at the end of the game. He was in there to put out the fire. So he was coming in third time through the order to relieve their starters, not infrequently. And he would pitch an inning, 2, sometimes 3, not more than that. And that 1984 Tigers team was pretty good. You could argue that maybe there's one team in the entire league that should have had it seared into their brains how successful the Tigers were, because there was one team that was kept from a potential world championship that year.
Do we learn lessons over 40 years now? Like, I don't feel like we learn lessons year to year.
Yeah, Kurt Bavakwa still hasn't learned the lesson of the '84 World Series. He just thinks that they shouldn't have walked the guy to get to Gibson. That's it.
Well, Dylan Cease isn't going to become Willie Hernandez. That's not going to happen. But is there a pitcher out there right now that has a bloated ERA because he's consistently given the second and third time through the order, but shows dominance that first time through and could be had for not that much, because that doesn't sound like a very good starting pitcher. And you bring him to San Diego and you just have him ready to go in the Randy Vasquez and the Dylan Cease starts. Have him ready to go, give you one time through the order. JP Sears makes $700,000 this year. I don't know what that is prorated for the last 56 games. Left-handed. So perfect complement to a right-handed starter, bait out the all left-handed lineup. If it's one of those trouble games where Cease is at 80 pitches by the time he gets through, second time through the order, give it to JP Sears. See if you can get it all the way through.
I love that idea, Dylan, and that was always the hope that I think John Pracoda and I had for Matt Waldron, was that he could be that guy who could throw 70% knuckleballs and go twice a week, throwing 2 or 3 innings at a time. But I think what JP Sears or someone like him also brings to the team that I will say Randy Vasquez and Stephen Kolek and Ryan Burkert bring to the team, as opposed to someone like Dylan Cease, is they're not really anybody yet. And the team can basically tell them what to do and say, this is how you're most effective. And fuck you, Randy Vasquez. You face 19 batters. And then you're going to take a seat. You're going to grab some pine at the end of that bench because you did a great job, and that's all you're going to do. And the team is never going to do that to Dylan Cease, much in the same way that they're never going to tell Luis Ariz to stop bunting. And that is the Achilles heel of the Padres organization. If you have any shiny piece of hardware on your shelf at home, an award or a batting title or even a Cy Young finalist finish, the team's never going to tell you what to do, because that's the grit squad. That's how they got to where they are. But young guys who come up, or journeymen, they have no problem telling them, because Ruben Niebla, we know, is one of the best pitching coaches in the country, and we have one of the best biomechanics labs. We have turned guys who are, effectively done with their careers. Your Nick Martinez as your Robert Suarez as your guys who goes to Japan and come back and have careers. The Padres have been able to bring out something from those guys. I choose to believe that Ruben Niebla has ways that he knows how to fix Dylan Cease that he might not be able to implement yet. Much in the same way that, like, I'm sure that Joe Musgrove is going to fight to pitch in October, even though damn well shouldn't be pitching.
It's going to happen. It's going to
happen. And I think, unfortunately for the Padres, and I desperately hope I'm proven wrong at some point in my life, as long as they continue to have that philosophy with teams, with their players, with their veteran star players, they're not going to be successful. And that's my great fear about the team.
You can know the truth. Can you handle the truth? These are championship players you're talking about. Ignore the fact that they came from the White Sox and the Marlins, respectively. Mike Soroka is another one of these guys who should be on the block. First time through the lineup, 618 OPS. The OPS plus split against him is 78. Second time it jumps to 722 and down up to 108. But high BABIP. This is a young guy who we just saw who looked nasty.
These are the old ways. These are the old ways.
Yes, trust the old gods.
Not everything that was done back then was a good idea. It's a good thing that we don't do a lot of the things that we used to do. But there's a few things that were the right idea then, and they're the right idea now.
We got to burn some shit, Dylan.
Well, it's funny, Dylan, not to go too far into the garden and off the path, but when you bring up Willie Hernandez, I kind of feel in a way that Morejon is doing the 2025 Willie Hernandez, because he's not going to throw 140 innings. No reliever is going to be asked to throw the way the relievers were in 1984, where, hey, go 3 innings, go 60 pitches, do what you want. But he's pitched in every inning from the 4th to the 10th this year for the San Diego Padres. So whereas Suarez comes in when it's the 9th, Morejon comes in when the fire is hot.
Yeah. His development has been what everyone's been waiting for years. And he's provided so much value specifically because he can just be brought in when the fire's burning, and then he can give you a little more length than that. And that accrues so much value to the rest of the bullpen.
All right, let's move just to keep things moving. Again, I wanted to stop and admire the Morejon pedestal in the garden path for a second. So 5-5, as I said earlier, I think it's big. 5-5 compared to 3-7, compared to 4-6. Really important. But if I was going to have a takeaway from this road trip, Dylan, it would be that, in the immortal words of the late, great Dennis Green, they are who we thought they were. The Padres haven't done anything to convince me. If you thought out there that there was a Schilt second half switch that just gets flipped from off to on, and all of a sudden the team wins 7 out of 9, every set going down the road. That's not the case. This is still a team that if you leave it the way it is, half the games they're going to score 3 runs or less. It's just the way it's going to be. That's who this team is. And there was nothing between Washington, Miami, and St. Louis that disabused me of the notions I already held.
Yeah, it's still a very vulnerable team. So it's a pretty fragile team, too, because of the lack of optionality off the bench and because of the specific weaknesses of some of the, tentpole hitters. So Gavin Sheets was a nice development, and for a while he seemed like he was doing okay against lefties, but he's pretty neutralized against left-handed pitching. And that's not a shock. That's common for a lot of hitters. If you look up what O'Neal Cruz has done against lefties in his life, he's below replacement level.
Yeah.
You cannot have him taking important at-bats against left-handed pitching. Sheets is not that bad, but he's a shell of himself against lefties. Same with Arise. Same with Jackson Merrill. And you don't have any optionality off the bench to change that. So there's a late game, path that's pretty easy to navigate. If you haven't gotten a big lead early, then it's going to be really tough in the late innings. Early, there haven't been a lot of leads because there is the simultaneous overlapping all-time career slumps of 3 of the hitters that were supposed to be tentpole hitters for the offense. That's, Tatis, Merrill, and in my opinion, Arise, I think, going back to the second half of last year even, just hasn't been the same hitter. And when those 3 are not producing, you're not going to get a lot of early runs either. So it's a very vulnerable team. The outlook is whether those trends are likely to reverse. So is Tatis, Merrill, Arise going to be closer to their typical selves down the stretch? And I think to some degree that's unknowable. The team probably has a much better idea of why their numbers cratered in May and June. But the fragility in left field and really everywhere in the lineup with no effective bats off the bench, that can be addressed. That's something that the team has a bit of agency to just fix.
Like, Nando's turned it on a little bit lately. He's hitting over 300 the last 15 games. We're seeing him come back to life a little bit. Arise had a good road trip. Jackson not really doing great. He's doing bad. But Gavin Sheets has been awful, boys. And as much credit as we gave him early on, last 7 games, 143 slug, 143 average, 200 on base. Last 15 games, 175 average, 246 slug. It's not somebody I'm trusting to carry the team. He's found money at this point, and he gives you, at worst, a fantastic left-handed bat off the bench, but they need that right-handed equivalent right now. Right now. Has it happened? Passon, you got anything for me?
Nothing yet. No, I obviously agree. Here's the one other thing I want to talk about this road trip before we move on. If there's one thing that I walk away from the road trip worried about, it's you, Darvish, because you're hoping to see improvement from you, Darvish. And maybe next time out is the one where it locks in. Maybe he needed 4 starts to get it going, and then it's the 5th one that he gets in. And I would not bet against you, Darvish, finding his way back to efficiency, finding his way back to success. But what we've seen so far, if I call Dylan Cease an auto loss in the playoffs, you, Darvish, is automatically out in the 2nd inning in a playoff game. Just completely useless, essentially. And the stuff hasn't been there. He's been getting hit really hard. There's some swing and miss, but there's also a lot. He throws the kitchen sink anyways, but it really looks like somebody who knows he doesn't have an out pitch right now. And so he's trying to fool the hitter basically every pitch. And my concernometer is pretty high right now on you, Darvish, period. Whoever wants to take that.
I guess the objective correct way to feel right now. There's no reason to think everything's going to be fine. It might not be. I think there's undoubtedly a lot more information that the team has about whether they can rely on Darvish, but I think there's no way that they can be certain either. One observation, when he made a start against the Phillies, do you remember that pivotal at bat against Schwarber? It wasn't the last at bat of the game, but it was the one everyone was stressed about. The final pitch of that at bat to strike him out was just like an S-tier fastball. He cranked it up to, I think, 96.8 miles an hour. The movement brushed back the left-handed batter, and it was dotted right on the edge of the strike zone. So he's got that in him, but you're not seeing that every pitch. He clearly saved it until then. So he probably does have, some of those pitches in his arsenal, but the stuff was not great in his last start, and the location was not great. And he's ramping up. You usually see pitchers struggle with stamina and location as they're ramping up. You saw that with Sandy Alcantara all season, and then when he faces the Padres, he was back to looking like a Cy Young winner. And at age 39, what does a ramp up look like? I don't think we have a lot of, previous examples to go by.
And it's weird. He's using his fastball at like a career low pace right now. I mean, maybe it makes sense if you're trying not to blow out your elbow and you're trying to be cute with it, but less than 10% usage on that four seamer, and that's a pitch that had never slunk below 15, and that was coming back from injury, not oddly enough. So hopefully, I'm never not going to give up on you, Darvish, guys, till he hangs up. He's my boy. I'm gonna keep going back to that craps table and rolling the dice until you Darvish himself is the one that says I can't do this, because the Padres aren't going to do that. They're going to let him go. But you're right. I can't point to one thing and go like, but he's doing this good, because his location, which can be wizard-like, has not been wizard-like. It's been over the plate. His off-speed junk can be masterful and as junkiest as you ever seen, and it's not. It's getting hit pretty hard. And his like just kind of presence on the mound can be intimidating and daunting and impenetrable, and it doesn't look like that when he's pitching right now. He looks frustrated. He looks like a guy searching for answers, which is to be expected this early, but it's a playoff race, contrary to what Josh Hader might think, and they need him quick.
I'll tell you what he looks like. Raphie, let me toss this to you at the second base pivot here. I'll tell you what he looks like to me. He looks like early season Joe Musgrove last year. A guy pitching
great comp,
with an elbow that he knows is about to go pop and is doing everything he can to be competitive, managing around just what he knows is going to happen eventually.
I think that's such a great call, Craig. And the reason why is, Chris, you mentioned location as a concern point. And, you Darvish in his entire career, outside of when he first came over from Texas and one sort of weird season in Chicago in 2018, he's never been a walk guy. He has a career average walk rate of 2.89 per 9 innings. And this season, that number, in a few short outings is up to almost 4.86 walks per 9 innings so far. And when you watch him, just one of those eye test things, he just doesn't have command of his pitches. And I know he has an incredible arsenal. And look, he's 3 weeks away from turning 39. Like, one would expect that some of those pitches don't necessarily have as much bite, or he might not have that swing and miss stuff that he had. But Darvish was never someone who looked completely lost in terms of trying to find the zone. And that's the part where I think I'm going to be laser focused on these next few starts and kind of the determination of, is he simply just too old and kind of over the hill a little bit, or is it really, as Craig, you're implying, something that is structurally wrong with him that doesn't allow him to command the pitches in the way he once did?
Well, that's going to be the open question going forward. And if there's one for Mr. Crazy Town Mayor over here that was happy to trade Dylan Cease, I think the strongest, most compelling argument against it is Yu Darvish just might be cooked. And if Yu Darvish is cooked, even the reduced version of Dilettante Dylan is just essentially get you over the finish line from here to there, and you probably can't cover 2 rotation spots. Now you make a trade, something comes back, AJ goes crazy, makes a deal with Minnesota, Joe Ryan comes back, some wild ass thing happens, then the metric changes. But that leads us to talking about the deadline. And, the Elston caveats still are in full effect. So any speculation about trades is generically useless. All trade discussion that is created by national aggregators is done so in order to get people to click on their pieces. A lot of it is farmed through agents. Agents have their own agendas, which are 100% different than the agendas of the front offices of teams. This is how disinformation spreads like wildfire in Major League Baseball. And then it is all papered over 48 to 72 hours after the deadline with the how it got done deal, Passan and Rosenthal pieces. That's like, no, we had our finger on the pulse all along. We just couldn't tell you until it was all done. No, they're just cleaning it up as they go along. So any deal that comes along, I evaluate it when it arrives. Who did we give up? Who did we get? Everything else is fantasy baseball. Everything else is fantasy baseball. So, okay.
Fantasy is fun.
It is. It's great. And over the last week, I really haven't changed my position. The Rangers might have changed theirs. I according to some of those aggregator pieces, Texas has thought about not cashing their chips and instead going for it. So my clean out Kyle Higashioka from their closet, an unnecessary, expenditure for them, give them Campusano. I still think it's a great idea. I don't know if it's going to happen, but when it comes, Dylan, to targets and acquisitions, you wrote yourself about Luis Robert a few weeks ago. And I feel like what he's done in the ensuing weeks has only reinforced my idea that this guy could be a very clean fit into the Padres.
Yeah, he's a cleaner fit than it might seem. His aggregate stats aren't great, but he continues to mash lefties. He always did all the way through the nadir of his struggles, even last year. He's always a plus bat against lefties. His defense is great. His base running is plus. And he fits, the AJ Preller mold of always wanting there to be, infinite upside. He has a lot of optionality too. You're not locked into that contract next year or the year after. In a lot of ways, that makes him a pretty clean fit. But there's money attached to his contract this year. You really can't trade for him unless the purse strings are opened up to spend or you move money. So those are the ways in which he's not as clean of a fit. But what he would provide is that, raise the ceiling of how much you can get from your defense in terms of stealing extra base hits and winning games. That's almost guaranteed as long as he's healthy. He's going to be effective on the base paths. And it looks like he's going to be a good hitter against lefties, which this lineup has really struggled with. There's a lot of value there. And because he was so bad last season and for the first half of this season, you have to think that his price point is going to be less. But it all comes down to that. And that's pretty unknowable. But in a lot of ways, that's a very clean fit.
Guys, any thoughts?
On Lou, Bob?
I mean, I guess we've kind of talked through it. Nonetheless,
yeah.
He's the guy on the top of my list. I take that over the multi-year big swing trading DeVries and we get O'Neal Cruz, or trading DeVries and we get Duran. I'm not into that nearly as much as I'm into give us Robert a little bit of money. We control the club option for next year. We can jettison that. It's sunk cost, or renegotiate with him to fold that into an $11 million deal or something for next year.
Anybody else?
Well, in some ways, there's a couple other guys that are on that same roster that are a very nice fit. Austin Slater's hit lefties well his whole career. This year's no exception. Plays a credible outfield. It's not going to be Luis Robert level, but it's going to make that position much less fragile. You're going to get more consistent at bats. The ability to just late in a game insert him against a lefty reliever is going to carry a lot of value compared to what we've been getting all season, which is just strong left-handed relief can just decimate parts of our order where there's those lanes of left-handed batters. And that's incremental value. But that's kind of what this team needs, and most likely will come at a significantly less of a cost. And they also have Mike Tauchman, he's left-handed hitter, but he's never had much of a problem with left-handed pitchers, and he actually plays a pretty good outfield. So compared to just leaving things as is, there's a lot of value that they can accrue just by addressing it with the White Sox.
Chicago.
Someone would have to go off the roster, and I think, the way I think about the bench all season is
no, don't let Trenton Brooks leave. No, not Trenton Brooks.
This bench has had like 3 to 4 26th man on the roster types. Players that can make an argument they should be on a roster, but only a couple of them. And I think Trenton Brooks is the obvious choice. He's got to be upgraded. Right now, the theory of the player, a late inning pinch hitter, left-handed bat, there's just been no execution, and there's nothing in his pedigree to suggest that he's actually going to fit that role. That has to be upgraded. And then you have a tough choice with, Wade and Bryce Johnson and Jose Iglesias, but you got to start looking at which of those guys really has plus tools that can help the team win down the stretch. Some hard choices are going to be made, but you can get a lot of value through upgrading 2 of those spots and creating the ability to have tough at-bats, especially late in the game and potentially early in the game, if you have an Austin Slater type that's taking the starts against the lefty. So the game theory of it, you have to think about, and if the resources are as constrained as they seem to be by some reports, you really got to be exhaustive about looking for options where it's affordable with what the Padres have to work with.
All right, let me introduce this as we move forward. Again, we don't know who's going to be traded. I think those are some great ideas. I would love to see a left-handed reliever come to this team. I think they could use one more that would take a little pressure off of Morejon and give them a little bit more optionality. If there was some way to do that and move Yuki's contract, Yuki hasn't been bad, but clearly from a trust standpoint, they don't trust him in anything above a C level leverage spot unless everyone is gassed, and then if there's no choice, they'll give him the ball. It'll be like, okay, give it a shot. So there's things I'd love. I'd love, are the A's an option? How much are they going to ask for? These things are unknowable for us for another 4 days. I'd love to see what happens. Here's something that's been driving me crazy, Dylan, so much that I'm the old man waving this envelope that I've been writing on. Okay, this is my Xander Bogaerts with runners in scoring position.
Oh, we've talked about that so
yesterday
much. I have
on
my wish list. You better not skip my wish list, Craig.
Not going to skip your
wish list. You better not skip my wish list. Go ahead and talk about Xander Bogaerts sucking again. He hit a home run today.
Guess what? Was anyone on base?
No, it didn't matter. He hit a home run.
Of course not. Leading off the inning.
Anybody on base
Leading off the inning, he did it. But 2 more times with runners on base, he came up to plate, and he did not get a hit. And this is now 321 at-bats as a Padre over 3 years. 321 at-bats, 64 hits. That's a 199 average. It's a 199 average. And yet, where has Xander Bogaerts hit the vast majority of his Padres career? He's hit 5th for the San Diego Padres. Dylan, I feel like this is a correctable error. However, it's very, very difficult because you cannot just port Bogaerts into the 2 spot, which would be a place where his runners in scoring position issues would disappear like magic, because then you'd have Tatis, Bogaerts, Machado, right, followed by, Merrill, Sheets, Arise, left, and everyone would just chew up this lineup. Every single bullpen would chew up the lineup. Everyone understands that. So I get it. Maybe it's a corner they've painted themselves into. But at some point, as the wise man formerly who occupied the manager's office of the San Diego Padres, Bruce Bochy, used to say all the time, you keep doing what you're doing, you'll keep getting what you're getting. And if the Padres keep doing what they're doing, putting Xander Bogaerts in the number 1 RISP slot in the lineup, 5, they're going to keep getting what they get, which is a team that is in the bottom quartile with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, it does seem that way. Bogaerts he's actually had, pretty similar batted ball profile this whole season. His numbers were better kind of in the latter half, but some of that is just luck. But he's moved into a phase of his career where the hard exit velocities are typically on, low launch angle hits, and teams play him very deep when there are runners in scoring position. And that means he's hitting it on the screws and he's making outs. And I don't know that there's a lot that he can do about that. That's why I forget when it was, but made some comment in one of the articles that I think this is who he is now. And that's not to mean a bad player. He can definitely be a winning player. But you don't see him launching fly balls with those 105 mile an hour exit velocities with the same frequency as he did before. And that's normal. He's become more of a line drive hitter. And nothing in his swing mechanics suggests that he's being coached that way. It's more likely that he's at that phase of his career where that's what happens. And so one thing that I wonder about is whether he needs to be looking for opportunities to do something that he has control over and just mix it up on the defense. There was a specific at bat where it was in San Francisco. Matt Chapman was playing 140 feet back on third base, basically playing in the outfield. And, Bogaerts scalded the ball, but it's a very easy play when you're playing that deep. The ball gets to you quickly, but you got so much range you can get to it. This is going to be probably the least popular thing I've ever said, but do you want to take a guess at what the batting average on right-handed hitters dropping a bunt when the third baseman's playing more than 130 feet back is?
It's above 300.
Oh, yeah. Yes,
How
it
about
is.
above like 400, above 500,
Yeah.
maybe?
I guess it's
well
above
above
700.
It's about 569. And the thing is like, you can't just have that in your back pocket for any moment. But you can pepper that in there when teams are cheating so hard on the line drive and the ground ball, which you're prone to at this time in your career. If you drop that down when teams are cheating the way Matt Chapman did, you might get some good outcomes in those at-bats, but you might have the third baseman playing just incrementally a little bit closer, and then some of those hits are getting through, and you're not hitting whatever it is, 130 with runners in scoring position anymore. Beyond that, the next best thing you can do is lineup changes. Put Bogaerts in a lineup spot where he's not constantly in that position.
Lead off. Sorry.
That's not a bad idea. He has, to his credit, he's reinventing himself as a hitter. His swing decisions have been better in 2025 than they've been, anytime recently. He's taking tough at bats. He's swinging at good pitches. He's working counts. There's a theory of a leadoff hitter where that's quite beneficial.
I mean, this is really inside, and it won't be for our podcast listeners at all. But for our YouTube viewers, I'm putting up a handy graphic that our graphics team put up about the Padres bunting, and I don't know if you guys can see it, but
was this memes approved? Did memes approve this graphic?
This is our entire graphics team worked on this for a long time, and it clearly shows Xander Bogaerts in the maybe section as far as bunting goes. So
correct.
This has been run through the machine, Dylan, and is approvable at this point. So yeah. Lay it down, Xander. Firmly in the yellow.
PHT graphics coming through again. Just undefeated all time. Chris, wish list.
I think I already threw it across the room.
Chris!
I think I already threw it. Here it is. It was just over on the desk. So what I had on the menu was 3 guys you want and 3 guys that you can go.
Okay.
Right? Because it's the trade deadline. And this is what we're talking about at the trade deadline. Podcasts about baseball.
Sure.
And we already talked about Taylor Ward on the postgame show. But guys, after watching Wilson Contreras this weekend, I want him. I want that Wilson Contreras money. I want that right-handed bat. I want that 120 WRC Plus, and Chaim Bloom is taking over for the long time Cardinals manager. And what did Chaim Bloom do the last time he took over a franchise, boys?
Traded
What did he
Mookie Betts.
He gave Mookie Betts away.
Let's do that. Let's get in that business.
I read the other day that the trade was his idea, which I was sure he must have been talked into that. It was his idea.
I'll give him credit
trade.
for this one. If he wants to send us Willie Contreras for absolutely nothing. Also, Travis D'Arnaud's right up the freeway, just sitting there on a $6 million a year contract for the next 2 years for an Angels team that does weird shit all the time. So let's shop with those places, boys. And also Mike Soroka. We also just saw him. He looks good. We've talked about how ways he could be used. He doesn't have to be a starter on this team, even though he's had success doing there before. He can be just like you mentioned, Dylan, our featured long relief that is a feature, not a bug. He's not the guy that comes in and gives away games. He's the guy that keeps you in tight ones that maybe you're up 1 or 2, that you don't have to go for the horseman every single game. And my 3 guys that can go are Luis Campusano, because I think he's going to be traded this deadline. I don't know what else they're going to do with him besides that. Luis Ariz, who's making a lot of money and does exactly what he does, and he bunts too much. And just to piss everybody off, Jeremiah Estrada.
Boo. 2 okay.
Yeah.
Is there guys you want to go, or you think that they are going to go?
Yeah, these are the guys these are guys that I would be looking at, like be shopping around if I was AJ. Be like, oh yeah, by the way, you interested in Jeremiah Estrada and all? They're like, wait, what? You're trading Jeremiah Estrada? And then you trick them. Like they're not quite ready that you're going to trade such a stud, such a fiery, awesome person, but get a little bit more value for him because he is a reliever who throws gas, and those guys tend to kind of go away
It's very
for
good.
a year and a half, 2 years, every once in a while. And he seems like the most likely one. That's all.
This was your wish list.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have correctly identified value. Jeremiah Estrada would have value to a lot of other teams, so I think you're indisputably correct about that. And then, on behalf of the rest of Padres Nation, how dare you? Mm-hmm. And I am not in favor of trading a horseman. In fact, I am not in favor of trading Robert Suarez. And if they wind up doing it, I'll understand the math of it, but it will break the chain. You've got to keep the horsemen intact. You need all 4 of the horsemen. You don't turn it into the 3 horsemen down the stretch when they're already tired and expect them to succeed. I'd rather add a 5th horse, maybe a Shetland pony. I'd rather add another horse to the stable rather than take a horse out of the stable. Now, trading Ariz, trading Cease, I'm completely fine with these things. I'd be happy with these things. But one question interrogating you on Contreras, you'd be bringing him in to be a first baseman, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's not a catcher.
He has not played catcher.
He would go inside out if you made him a catcher.
No. Wait, what? Explain. Not like Jose Iglesias swing.
This kid got his all-time lifetime contract to come be the catcher of the Cardinals. And 6 weeks into it, he was in right field.
Yes.
6 weeks into it.
Yeah, no, he'd be first base. He's played first base all year, DH'd. That he would just be a right-handed bat, going to first base.
A great right-handed bat.
And taking that DH spot. Yeah, we need him.
All kinds of hit by pitches. And his control situation is what? Big money, right?
Big money through 28. This is a whole ownership has to pony up like $20 million a year the next.
Pony up. Yeah, we're talking about ponies.
Yeah, let's.
I'd assume you should be able to get St. Louis to eat a good amount of money, but
I think so too. I like that's a club that is looking for a new identity, and he didn't live up to his expectations, like Craig said, within months of the deal. So I just think there's value there. It's the type of thing that we can get creative. And I just keep seeing the same names brought up over and over again. And that's not what AJ's going to do. He's going to throw something at us that we're not ready for. At least he better.
Yeah, that's kind of my wish list is that AJ Preller dives deep, deeper than any of us are going to do because it's not our job, and goes all the way down the entire depth chart of the major leagues and looks in AAA and finds those players that can come to San Diego and be deployed in such a way that they provide value that they haven't yet and fix the parts of this team that are making it a very fragile roster. And if he can identify those players, the cost shouldn't be prohibitive. And when it comes to, the minor leagues, I'd really like to keep the powder dry as it pertains to, the top 10 prospects in the organization. But the fact is, players where it's clearly known, the league knows this is a productive player, you're just not going to get those for cheap, not at the trade deadline. So my wish list would be players I've never heard of, and then when I start reading about them, oh, wow, he excels hitting against left-handed pitching. Wow, he's really good in AAA. Oh, this guy's numbers on the year are terrible, but first time through the order, that's what I'm hoping for. I hope we trade for guys I've never heard of, and as soon as I read about it, the theory of the player makes so much sense, and what we gave up is similarly players I have never heard of. That would be a dream deadline.
I love what you're saying. I'm gonna just to fulfill the requirement, and I'm gonna keep it easy, okay? Because these are people I've already talked about. So my 3 in are Luis Robert, Kyle Higashioka, and I will take from the Rangers bullpen Robert Garcia, the left-hander who can strike some guys out. And if you flip-flop out Robert Garcia and give me our old friend Steven Wilson instead, from the White Sox.
Steven Wilson.
Yeah.
Yes.
That'd be fine by me as well. So those are 3 guys in. I don't think you ever have to go to your top 3 or 4 prospects to get those guys in. I think Camposano, a Tyson Neighbors, a single A starter like that should get you over the line to get that level of talent in. And I think it makes the Padres a lot better team if you had those 3 players added.
I thought you were going to say Luis Ariz for sure. Raphie, do you have a list?
Oh, send Luis Ariz out.
Well,
I just don't know. The White Sox and the Rangers aren't going to take him, so that's going to be a different deal.
No, they're not.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of my guys there's some overlap. I think that in terms of the guys who are gonna guys I would want to come in, I think one person I would add to the list, because I think Luis Robert is like the most like, let's get a pack of Marlboros and just start smoking and fucking like watch the ticker tape as we see it. If you can do up and down, like how we can do, it's the most insane take, but like I think it like is weirdly a great fit for the Padres. I like Kyle Higashioka. It's not very exciting, but it is a addition by subtraction of adding by taking Martin Maldonado off of this team. And one name I'd like to add to the mix is Ramon Laureano. I don't know what he's going to cost, but he has been fantastic for the Orioles. I think Cedric Mullins is obviously getting a lot of attention. The thing about Laureano is that he also has a cheap club option next year, which is obviously going to up the price on him. But he is a career 120 WRC plus hitter against lefties. This season, he has reverse splits. He's actually much better against righties this year than lefties. But I would bet on the track record that he has, that he truly at heart is a guy who can mash lefties. He's going to play a good outfield. You'd have a fantastic defensive outfield. So he's intriguing to me. I would say my wish list, so to speak, of guys who I think the Padres will trade from, not so much wish list, so to speak, as like these are guys that I think are realistic, because I think it's easy to say like, yeah, they should trade Martin Maldonado. Obviously, it's like no, like it's like I think like guys who are 100% out the door. Luis Camposano already mentioned. I think personally, AJ's going to overpay for someone because, as we've documented, he's not a good deadline dealer. And one of those people that he's going to trade away is going to be Ryan Bergert, who is going to be a successful 3-4 starter for some other team somewhere when they develop his changeup, and that scares the shit out of me. And I don't think that AJ Preller has the stones to trade a horseman. So I don't think he's going to trade Estrada, even though I do think it makes the most sense out of all of the four horsemen that Estrada would be the most dealable, so to speak. I think if any reliever that's currently on the Padres is going to be traded, it's David Morgan. Yeah. David Morgan has insanely good stuff. He's a rookie. And unfortunately for the Padres right now, he's like the sixth or seventh guy out of the bullpen. And so he's not really in a position to make an impact on this year's team. However, I think David Morgan will be an impactful arm for whoever he's pitching for in 2027, 2028. Because right now, he has 4 pitches which grade out at above average stuff, and his location is actually what's hurting him at this moment. But he has truly excellent stuff as a reliever. And someone's going to figure him out. And I'm confident that whoever figures him out is going to get some sort of value out of him. I just am wondering if AJ's like, well, this is our guy who other teams would be interested in because he's got so much controllable service time, who isn't necessarily helping the Padres this season. So I think that those are my 3.
Morgan's a great call. People aren't talking about that. Yeah. That's one of those ones like, oh, after the fact, it makes a lot of sense. You know, the thing I'm going to just throw into the mix, and maybe it's being pie in the sky, honestly, but when they talk about buy and sell, one of the ways that you can buy and sell is you can attach a prospect to a contract. And one thing the Padres could do is move one of their young minor league pitchers and attach that to Wandy Peralta or Yuki Matsui. When you're bringing in another left-hander from another organization that you're going to put more leverage innings onto, you could move one of those contracts, attach enough prospect value to it that another team is willing to absorb that, and then you have reduced your payroll while making a trade. So it doesn't have to be cutting off your arm a la Suarez or Cronenworth, you know, or even Arise, although I'd be happy to see Arise moved in the right deal. But, you know, those moves change the clubhouse, even Arise. You know, you have to respect that. If you move to Luis Arise, that changes the clubhouse. There's a lot of guys there who really believe in Luis Arise, and they're going to feel betrayed to move him for Mike Tauchman. You know, even though Mike Tauchman would be more valuable to the San Diego Padres than Luis Arise, probably year over year over year. Like, still, that's going to be a hard sell to Manny Machado and other players.
Could be.
Speaking of which, before we get out of here, guys,
Are we going to?
Did you notice that Manny Machado's Instagram is down?
We're going to.
2 days now.
Oh, yeah.
Double checked again today. Still down. Now, it went down yesterday, Saturday, July 26th. Friday, July 25th, Manny clicked, or somebody.
The Manny's account.
The Manny Machado Instagram account, verified, blue check marked, well over 1 million followers. Yep. You know, an account that Instagram will pay attention to. And therefore promote. And therefore, if he is one of 1,000 or 100 people who like a post, it will say Manny and 98 others liked this post. Well, he liked a post where Scott Kaplan was talking about some other aggregators writing and reporting, and he was saying the Padres have no money, and they're not going to have any money, and they're not going to spend any money. And then there was a little like underneath there that said liked by, and it was Manny's account. And then the next day, Manny's account was no more. And today it remains no more. Now, it could pop up again tomorrow. I don't believe the question's been asked. But, you know, where this went for me, Chris, where this went from tinfoil hat discussion to news was when his account went offline. That's a moneymaker,
effect, baby.
That's a literal moneymaker for Manny Machado, his agent, his marketing team. They'll get him to like a product in a post for X amount of money. Like that's a real thing. He didn't just turn it off because he's mad at Meta. Like something happened there, and the idea that the Padres pulled his chain behind the scenes is not beyond the pale for me in my experience of what this organization might do. Now, Manny taking they wouldn't say, Manny, take your account offline. They couldn't do that.
No.
But I could see them going like, Manny, burr, 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 and him going, F you, group, psh, slide the deal. What account, group? There's no account. And then hang up the phone. Like I could absolutely see him do that.
Just the facts, ma'am. The team's highest paid player liked to post criticizing team ownership, and within a day, that account was gone. And a week ago, Manny Machado gave an interview to Marty Caswell talking about his relationship with AJ Preller and how much it had grown. And, that those are the facts. The speculation is AJ has been telling Manny about his handcuffs, about the restrictions on him, and Manny is pulling levers that he can to try to do what everybody knows it needs to happen, which is the club needs to improve. And that's the speculation. That's the reading in between the lines. That's the fortune teller's glowing crystal ball. But it's newsworthy, man. Like the clubhouse of the San Diego Padres, it doesn't belong on Netflix. It belongs on like MTV or something like that.
I mean, Netflix does a pretty good job. If you let them in,
fair.
Yeah,
they might do okay. Go ahead, Dylan.
Well, the tinfoil hat analysis, none of that can really ever be known.
No. Unless he talks about it. Yeah.
Yeah, unless there's a tell-all. But, the exculpatory organic explanation can be pretty well understood. And that's, to invoke like a quote that, Raphie, I remember you referenced this at some time in the past. For much of the season, the Padres have been playing like a 500 team, which means from day to day, everyone's feeling it. It's an emotional crisis one day, and then you're top of the world the next day. But taking the long view, you don't know what you have. Is this really a team that you want to invest big in? And there's big questions. We talked about some of them. Darvish has to be a big question to the Padres. Michael King is still a question.
Yeah.
And I think the team knows more about why Tatis and Merrill fell into such, deep slumps, but probably don't have 100% certainty that that's going to be resolved either. And the one thing that you do get by waiting as long as the team has waited to address its weaknesses is you get more information. You get a clearer and clearer and clearer picture. And at some point, there's an asymptote. You're not going to get any more clarity. And you're going to have to make some decisions under uncertainty. And we're coming up, 4 days from that. But you could argue that there's enough uncertainty that from an efficiency standpoint, from an expected value standpoint, it makes sense to just wait until you have the best idea of what to expect and then make your moves, because you're going to be doing that with some degree of irreconcilable uncertainty.
I need to tell you guys, this is my last thing on the show, about my emotional crisis right now with this team, which is that I'm currently staying in Encinitas for the weekend, and I am, swear to God, I'm having like a Being John Malkovich moment where every like middle-aged hair guy with brown hair, like walking along Highway 101, I'm like, AJ, is it you? AJ? I swear to God, I'm stopping because I'm like, am I going to be able to confront this person and ask him when we're getting a right-handed power bat? And it's never him. He's probably like posted up inside Tony Gwynn Drive at the moment forever. But I'll start doing circles around the Encinitas YMCA basketball courts. If
I was just going to say, just drift towards some outdoor courts, and then if you don't succeed there, a Denny's, like your nearest Denny's, and just check those back corner booths, and you just might find. Might
boys,
find
a little bit of breaking.
Yeah.
A little bit of breaking. It's not the breaking we want, but the Padres have announced the rotation for the upcoming Mets series.
All right.
Monday, we will have Dylan Cease. Tuesday, we will have to be determined. Wednesday, we will have to be determined.
Okay.
None of those names are you, Darvish.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right, because it should be Cease,
but
Darvish. Third was
Piv, right?
Third was Vasquez, wasn't it? But it should be Pivetta.
I thought it'd be Darvish Piv, but yeah.
Huh.
Roster Resource would have had it as you, Darvish, Nick Pivetta. Yeah. So we got Dylan Cease going tomorrow, but that other than that, the Padres are throwing a wrench into things.
Okay. Well, get the scouts out there. And get this one figured out. Okay, well, here's the one last thing I wanted to say about this, and it's not any grand observation. It's just something to note about Manny Machado. Manny Machado is a part owner of San Diego FC. Manny Machado is seeing in real time, in real life, the other side of the business. And just to drop a little Chromaniacs, silver glitter here over the end of the show, it was just 2 weeks ago that Manny Machado was quoted inside the Petco Park locker room saying, "Man, we've got to keep Milan Alaski. We need that guy. We got to figure out a way to get that done." And like 3 days later, Milan Alaski was gone. The loan reached its end and was mutually terminated, and he was headed back on a plane to Copenhagen. So, like, the idea that Manny is a petulant player who is going to utilize social media as his LeBron style, I'm gonna influence with an emoji, I'm gonna be the news cycle. I don't think that's necessarily Manny, because this is the literal same guy who is getting calls from Tyler Heaps or calls from the ownership, from Cody Martinez over at Saquon, going like, "Yeah, dude, we're not keeping Milan Alaski. He's gone. Here's the 18-year-old we're getting from Spain instead. We're not going to have that guy. Here's the reason why. He was asking for 1.1 and we had 330 available, that type of stuff." And he goes, "Oh, okay, I get it." So I just don't think he's like impetuous enough to not understand how the sausage is made at this point.
It's just drama, man. It's an interesting turn of events that we can't know what the consequences are, as Dylan alluded to. Like we're never going to know, almost certainly, what it means or the actual timeline of things. It's just like it's the trade deadline, and to have this stuff happening in Padres world when everything's getting a little hot. It's fascinating. I can't help but be intrigued.
Well, I think you can assume it means he wants to win, and he probably thinks this team can win.
I agree. Yeah.
Or as constructed, might not.
Well, it can, but it needs a little help. I think we all agree. This team can win. This team can win a lot. It just needs a little help. If you leave it as it is, it's a rickety structure that could fall down. It might make it across the line. It might collapse before. If you reinforce it, it could be something that crashes through the line, and is a battering ram into the playoffs. I really do believe that. I think the Padres have championship run prevention, and they've got a bottom 5 offense. So just like it would be in the NBA, it's like, don't go, you're 25th in the league in 3-point shooting, just get to 15th. You don't have to be first, just get to 15th. Like, clean it up a little bit, tick it up a few percentages, and everything is going to be a lot different. I really, really believe that. Tick this offense up a couple percentages, and this team looks a lot different because there's a lot more 9-2s that go post up on the board that take Morahone and Adam and the rest of the horsemen out of the top 4 spots in relief appearances. And then all of a sudden the victory equation looks a lot firmer along the way. All right, let's put a cap on this one. Dylan, tell everybody if they don't know where they can read Letters to AJ.
Yeah, it's on Substack. Letters to AJ at substack.com. Letters 2 with the number 2, AJ. Then pretty commonly on Blue Sky and X or Twitter or whatever, day to day. You can find us there.
I want to highlight it and just say that if you subscribe to the Substack, you are going to see the stuff the Padres broadcast uses before they do it. So no smarter analysis on San Diego Padres baseball right now anywhere than besides than at Letters to AJ.
And we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but Dylan, your series on the Anatomy of a Slump series, where Dylan and Letters AJ goes in depth on, first on Fernando Tatis Jr. and then Luis Rise and just breaking down, what's been going wrong with some people. It was Merrill was the third player in that, right?
Merrill's expanding the zone, yeah.
Yeah. So if you're looking for an entry point into, if you haven't read Dylan's work before and you want to, just look for a place you can dive in and understand this team in 2025, highly recommend the Anatomy of a Slump articles. They're fantastic.
Kind words. Thanks, guys.
You can follow Raphie on Instagram at Raphie's Brand. You can follow Chris at ChrisReed619. You can follow myself at 619 Sports and Life. Chris and I will be out at the beginning of this coming week with a new Crossing Streams podcast. This week we'll be talking about The Eternaut, which is out of Argentina on Netflix and is surprisingly really good. If that just sounds like weird to you, I might say just go click play on episode 1. And, for me, I do subtitles. If you need the dub, do it how you got to do it. But, I might check that out. Our last episode was Raphie, our special guest, and he went into such incredible detail about how Poker Face Season 2 came to be. Just a can't-miss episode. So I would say go check that out as well. Chromaniacs, too, doing stuff on SDFC. Hey, busy. All right. For Dylan, Raphie, Chris, I'm Craig. Go Padres. And by that, I mean AJ.
Go Padres.
Come on, AJ. Go, AJ.
Do something.
You find him, Raphie. You find him.
I'm going to that Denny's, AJ.